I accidentally ruined an expensive dress while trying to impress my boyfriend's parents with my alleged culinary skills. I recently met my boyfriend's parents. We have been dating for 2 years, and I was nervous about making a good impression. He told me repeatedly that they were excited to meet me and that I should just be myself. I tend to overthink things, especially when it comes to meeting new people, so I decided to go the extra mile. I planned to cook them a fancy dinner at their house. I arrived at their house with all the groceries. I felt a little anxious pulling into the driveway. The house was much bigger than I expected. I unloaded the car and went inside. My boyfriend met me at the door. He gave me a quick hug and helped me carry the bags to the kitchen. His mother had a very well-organized kitchen. I appreciated that, as it would make my job easier. I immediately started unpacking and prepping the ingredients. I wanted to get as much done as possible before his parents arrived. I started by chopping vegetables for the risotto. My boyfriend offered to help, but I told him I had it under control. I wanted to prove I could handle the meal on my own. He went to watch television in the living room. I continued to work in the kitchen, feeling a growing sense of pressure to make the dinner perfect. The afternoon passed quickly. I managed to get most of the meal prepared before his parents arrived. I was just putting the osso buco in the oven when I heard the garage door open. I took a deep breath and wiped my hands on a towel. My boyfriend came into the kitchen, followed by his parents. They seemed friendly and welcoming. His mother complimented me on the aroma of the food. I introduced myself and tried to act as natural as possible. I offered them drinks. I felt relieved that the initial meeting went well. I spent weeks planning the menu. I knew his mother loved Italian food. My boyfriend suggested lasagna, but I wanted to do something a little more impressive. I settled on osso buco with saffron risotto and a side of roasted asparagus. I also planned to make a chocolate hazelnut torte for dessert. I wrote out a detailed shopping list and timeline to make sure I would not forget anything. I wanted to handle all the shopping and cooking on my own. I thought it would show them I am capable and considerate. I arranged to arrive a few hours before his parents got home from work. This gave me time to prepare the meal without feeling rushed or stressed. I spent weeks planning the menu. I knew his mother loved Italian food. My boyfriend suggested lasagna, but I wanted to do something a little more impressive. I settled on osso buco with saffron risotto and a side of roasted asparagus. I also planned to make a chocolate hazelnut torte for dessert. I wrote out a detailed shopping list and timeline to make sure I would not forget anything. I wanted to handle all the shopping and cooking on my own. I thought it would show them I am capable and considerate. I arranged to arrive a few hours before his parents got home from work. This gave me time to prepare the meal without feeling rushed or stressed. The drive to their house felt long. I replayed all the possible scenarios in my head. I worried about burning the risotto or undercooking the meat. I also fretted about whether they would like me. When I arrived, I unloaded all the groceries and cooking equipment from my car. I found the kitchen well equipped, which eased my anxiety a bit. I started prepping the vegetables and getting the meat ready for braising. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, so I began to relax. I even put on some music while I cooked. I offered to make a classic Italian meal. I researched recipes and practiced them several times at my place to ensure they were perfect. I bought all the ingredients fresh from a local farmer's market. I even splurged on a new dress for the occasion. It was a silk dress I had been eyeing for months, and I thought it would make me look sophisticated and put together. The day arrived, and I packed up all my ingredients and headed to my boyfriend's parents' house. They greeted me warmly at the door, and I immediately felt a little more relaxed. His mom complimented my dress, which boosted my confidence even further. I went straight to the kitchen to start preparing the meal. The parents offered to help, but I politely declined, wanting to show off my skills. I found all the pots and pans I needed and organized my workspace. Chopping the vegetables was simple, and I felt good about my progress. I even remembered to put on some music. I thought things were going smoothly. His mother came into the kitchen and watched me for a few minutes. She asked if I needed any assistance again. I said no, but thanked her for the offer. She smiled and left, and I continued cooking. I tasted the sauce frequently, adjusting the seasoning. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the house. I felt proud of the aroma I was creating. I checked the time and realized I was on schedule. I was careful not to make a mess, since I wanted to make a good impression. I put the sauce on low heat and set a timer. I thought this was the perfect time to do some of the smaller tasks. I grabbed the box of pasta and turned to get a pot. That is when the accident happened. I was making a tomato sauce that required simmering for at least an hour. While the sauce was simmering, I decided to prepare the pasta. As I reached into the cupboard for a pot, I accidentally knocked over a bottle of olive oil. The bottle crashed onto the floor, and oil splattered everywhere, including all over my new silk dress. I gasped, horrified at the sight. The beautiful fabric was now covered in greasy stains. I stood there for a moment, stunned and unsure of what to do. My boyfriend's mom rushed into the kitchen. She saw the mess and immediately started grabbing paper towels. She asked if I was okay, and I mumbled that I was fine, just mortified about the dress. She tried to reassure me that it was just an accident and not to worry. She suggested I try to blot the oil out with some dish soap. I took a deep breath and did as she said. I found dish soap under the sink and squirted a tiny amount onto a paper towel. I pressed the paper towel to the oily parts of the dress, trying not to rub too hard. I did this over and over, replacing the paper towel each time. It did seem to be lifting some of the oil, but also spreading it slightly. I knew I needed water to rinse the soap, but I hesitated. I did not want to make the problem worse, but the soap would just sit there if I didn't rinse. I turned the water on to cool and wet another paper towel. Carefully, I blotted the soapy areas with a damp towel. I was hoping the cool water would help lift the oil away from the fabric. Instead, the water appeared to spread the stain even more. Now the dark spots were larger and more noticeable than before. The silk was also starting to look wrinkled and misshapen. I knew this dress was expensive and I was afraid of what my boyfriend would say. I took her advice and began dabbing at the stains with soap and water. Of course, this only made things worse. The water created even larger rings around the oil spots, and the silk looked completely ruined. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I had ruined my dress, and I hadn't even started cooking properly. My boyfriend's mom noticed I was upset and offered to lend me one of her dresses. I gratefully accepted her offer and went to her room to change. The dress she lent me was a simple cotton sundress. It was comfortable, but it definitely wasn't the sophisticated look I had been going for. I returned to the kitchen, feeling deflated. My boyfriend's dad had come in to help clean up the broken glass and spilled oil. He made a joke about how clumsy he was and that I shouldn't feel too bad. I thanked my boyfriend's dad for trying to make me feel better. I felt embarrassed about ruining dinner. I also felt self-conscious in the borrowed dress. I wished I had never offered to cook in the first place. I should have just suggested we order a pizza. Now I was stuck trying to recover the evening. I focused on helping him clean up the kitchen. I wanted to get the mess taken care of before we started cooking again. After cleaning, I decided to try again. My boyfriend helped me gather fresh ingredients. We worked together to recreate the meal. He took charge of some of the tasks. I appreciated his help. I started to feel more relaxed as we cooked. We were laughing and talking as we worked. I think his parents noticed that we were getting along well in the kitchen. Despite the initial disaster, I tried to regain my composure and focus on the cooking. I managed to salvage the tomato sauce and cook the pasta without further incident. I even managed to make a decent salad. We all sat down at the table to eat, and the food turned out pretty good. His parents complimented my cooking, which made me feel a little better. However, the ruined dress was still on my mind. Throughout dinner, I kept glancing down at the oil stains on the silk dress. I couldn't help but feel embarrassed and self-conscious. I tried to laugh along with the conversation, but I was constantly aware of the mishap. My boyfriend noticed I was acting strangely and asked if I was okay. I told him I was just upset about ruining my new dress. I told my boyfriend I appreciated him trying to make me feel better, but I still felt bad about the dress. It was expensive, and I had only worn it once. He suggested we look online to see if there were any cleaning tips for silk. We spent a few minutes researching different methods, but I was hesitant to try anything myself in case I made it worse. Some websites recommended using dish soap, while others warned against it. I didn't want to risk damaging the dress further. My boyfriend said he understood and that we could just take it to a professional. I felt relieved when his mom offered to take it to her cleaner. I thanked her and accepted her offer. I gave her the dress after we finished cleaning up. I hoped the cleaner could remove the stains, but I was prepared for the possibility that it might be permanently damaged. Even if it could not be cleaned, at least I knew I had tried. I also resolved to be more careful in the future when wearing nice clothes around food. I did not want this to happen again. The rest of the evening was pleasant. He reassured me that it wasn't a big deal and that he thought the dress was beautiful, even with the stains. He also said that his parents liked me and that my cooking was great, and that is what mattered. After dinner, I helped his mom clean up the kitchen. While we were washing dishes, she offered to take my dress to a professional cleaner. She said she knew a place that specialized in delicate fabrics and could potentially remove the oil stains. I was hesitant to let her spend the money, but she insisted. I thanked her profusely and gave her the dress. The next day, she called to tell me that the cleaners had managed to remove most of the stains, but there was still a faint discoloration on the fabric. She said I could pick it up whenever I wanted. I went to her house to retrieve the dress. It looked much better than it had initially, but the faint stains were still visible. I asked if she was sure she did not want me to pay for the cleaning. She told me it was no problem and she was glad to help. I felt guilty that she had to spend her time and money on something I had damaged. I offered to take her out for dinner to show my appreciation. She declined, saying my gratitude was sufficient. I still felt like I owed her something, but I did not push the issue. I made a mental note to do something nice for her in the future. I hung the dress in my closet, unsure of what to do next. I considered donating it, but I felt bad giving away something that was not in perfect condition. I thought about trying to dye it a darker color to hide the stains, but I was afraid I would ruin it completely. I searched online for professional stain removal services, but they were all quite expensive. I figured it was worth a shot to try some home remedies before spending more money. I was determined to salvage the dress somehow. I thanked her again for her help and told her I would try to find a way to fix it completely. I took the dress home and researched different stain removal techniques online. I tried everything from baking soda to vinegar, but nothing seemed to work. Eventually, I accepted that the dress was never going to be the same. I decided to take it to a tailor and see if they could alter it into something else. The tailor suggested turning it into a skirt or a top. I liked the idea of a skirt, so I asked her to proceed. A few weeks later, I picked up the altered dress. It was now a beautiful silk skirt. I was actually really happy with how it turned out. It was unique, and I knew I would get a lot of wear out of it. I paid the tailor and thanked her for her work. I took the skirt home and hung it in my closet. I wanted to find the right occasion to wear it. I considered wearing it to work, but it felt a little too dressy for my office. I thought about wearing it out to dinner with friends, but I wanted the first outing to be a little more special. Eventually, I decided to wear it to my boyfriend's parents' house for dinner. I always feel pressure to dress nicely when I see them. They are very proper and always put together. I thought the skirt would be a good balance of stylish and appropriate. I paired it with a simple black sweater and some heels. I felt confident and excited as I headed to their house. I wore the skirt the next time I saw my boyfriend's parents. His mom immediately recognized the fabric and complimented me on how I had repurposed it. She said it looked even better as a skirt than it did as a dress. I told her I was glad I had found a way to salvage it. The whole experience was definitely embarrassing, but it taught me a valuable lesson about not trying too hard to impress people. Now, several months later, I still cringe when I think about the olive oil incident. I learned that accidents happen, and it is important to be able to laugh at yourself. My boyfriend's parents are wonderful people, and they didn't judge me for my clumsiness. In fact, they seemed to appreciate my effort, even if it didn't go as planned. I think that, in the end, the ruined dress actually helped break the ice and made me feel more comfortable around them. I tried to help clean up after the spill, but I just made things worse. I grabbed some paper towels and started dabbing at the oil, but it only spread the stain. The dress was silk, so the oil soaked in quickly. I could feel my face getting redder and redder. My boyfriend's mother tried to reassure me, saying it was just a dress. She said she would try to get the stain out, but I knew it was hopeless. The olive oil was all over the front of the dress, and the color was completely ruined. I offered to pay for the dress, but she refused. After dinner, I felt terrible. I offered to do the dishes, hoping to make up for ruining her dress. My boyfriend helped me, and we talked about the incident. He told me that his parents liked me and that they understood it was an accident. He said his mother has ruined several items of clothing herself. This made me feel slightly better, but I still felt like I made a bad impression. I decided that I would find a way to make it up to them. I resolved to try harder in the future to avoid these kinds of mishaps. However, the memory still makes me sweat. I still feel like a complete klutz whenever I think about the whole situation. I am just glad that my boyfriend and his parents were understanding and supportive. I am also grateful that I was able to turn the ruined dress into something beautiful. It is now a reminder that even the most embarrassing moments can have a silver lining. I am not sure how long it will take for me to completely get over this awkward encounter, but I am working on it.